Hi guys, this is Ralph Ellis from the Swinging Blue Jeans, a major 60s rock and roll band. I'm going to ask you some questions today.
Yeah, fine.
The first one I'm going to ask is, how did you become a rock and roll group?
We started probably in about, the original Swinging Blue Jeans started in 1957. And at that time, the music that was popular at that time was called skiffle. It was a combination of New Orleans jazz, black music, blues, shanty music. Really came about from migration to, and broadly across, started in America because there were so many different nationalities migrating to America and taking the music with them. So it was a jigsaw of all the different types of music. But basically it was a couple of guitars, a T-chest bass, and maybe one snare drum, and so people made up the music, and that's how it became called skiffle. But it was easy to play, so youngsters at 15 could buy a guitar and start their own group up, like I did.
Cool, that's really interesting. So you formed after that like a traditional jazz kind of band, didn't you, after that?
Yeah, I had my own skiffle group called the Ralph Ellis Skiffle Group, and I was about 16, 17 when I had that, and we were playing American black music, like New Orleans music. And in Liverpool at that time there was a big interest and swing towards traditional jazz, which was like a progression of skiffle. Again, it had a lineup of clarinet, trumpet, and what was the other one? Trombone. Yeah. And then they had their drums, bass and banjo. Yeah. So that's the way we started, because we started really in the cabin and all the jazz bands were playing in the cabin. And so we formed a group with the same lineup, but instead of the three trumpet, clarinet, and
so you kept the rhythm of the...
We had three guitars and three vocalists.
Yeah. Very interesting. And then you became rock and roll after a trip to Hamburg?
Yes, Paul McCartney recommended us. We were his favourite band, and he recommended to the agents in Germany where they'd been playing, they were looking for groups to go over there. And Paul liked us a lot, and he recommended to the agents that we went over there and played.
Wow.
Which we did. We were contracted for a month in 1961. But when we got over there, the Star Club, the Top 10 Club and other clubs were being frequented by merchant navy seamen, and they didn't want traditional jazz, they wanted rock and roll. So one night we're on the stage playing away, swinging away. I remember the song we were playing was called Down by the Riverside. I met my pretty bride down by the riverside. And then this guy stands in front of the stage, I can see him now, and he says, "What is this music you are playing? We don't like this music. Play rock and roll." And when we came off, the manager said, "They don't like you. They don't want traditional jazz. They want rock and roll." So literally we had to change overnight from being a traditional jazz band with the same lineup, the same setup, to a rock and roll band. And that's what we did. Wow. Because they took the passports off us when we got there. We were there for a month. We had to change. We had to give them music that they wanted.
They wouldn't let you run away then? They wouldn't let you leave if you...
No, until you fulfilled your contract. So we had to change to rock and roll. And we did, literally, overnight. With the help of a couple of other groups that were there. The Undertakers, they were a Liverpool group, the Searchers. And we got together. They showed us certain songs and certain chord sequences and bass riffs and things. And we had a bit of a practice and learnt as we went along.
Yeah, you dropped the banjo as well at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, well, more or less, once we turned to rock and roll, there was no place for the banjo. So Paul Moss, who was on banjo then, accepted it, waited till we got home and dropped out of the band. And then the rest of us carried on.
Wow. So, it's true you played the first Top of the Pops, the first televised Top of the Pops, that's right, correct?
Yeah, 1st of January 1964 in Manchester, we did the very first Top of the Pops. The Stones were on, Cilla Black, Hollies I think were on, I can't remember quite now.
And then a couple of days later, the Daily Mirror came out with a publishment article about your supposed argument with Keith Richards?
Well, it's true, but it was exaggerated, to be honest. We just come off the stage and we went into the canteen, and there were some fans there and they wanted autographs, and we were signing autographs. Then Keith Richards from the Stones said to me, "Ralph, can I borrow your pen?" I said, "Sure." So I gave him the pen while he did autographs, and I said that some came to me and said, "Can I have your autograph?" So I went over to Keith Richards and said, "Keith, can I have my pen?" And he said, "Excuse me," he said, "I haven't got your effing pen." So I said, "Well, you have. You've used it and it's in your top pocket." He said, "No, it isn't. And if it is, it's mine. It's not yours." So I made a grab for the pen, and then he pushed me back, and then we started pushing each other and messing about until, and it looked like a bit of a scuffle going on, but we were a bit of a handbags at dawn sort of things, really, that we started making things of it because, and Mick Jagger came over and said, "Okay, that's it, that's enough," and he gave me the pen back. But Jimmy Savile got hold of it and he made quite a story of it, and I think he sold it to the Daily Mirror.
Yeah.
And that's where it all came from.
Wow.
That's what happened.
Wow. You started as it started as a 6-piece, as you said before, with the rhythm of the traditional jazz band and the guitars, the 3 guitars and the vocals. That gave you kind of a unique sound that no one had really ever heard of before, didn't it?
It did, because a lot of the groups and the skiffle groups in Liverpool stayed as skiffle, or like Rolling Stones and the Hurricanes, the Mersey Beats, the Beatles, they all took on rock and roll. And we had an absolute unique sound because there was no 6-piece lineup anywhere that I was aware of in the country, but certainly not in Liverpool, where we had 3 guitars as the front part of the rhythm section, and then the bass, the banjo and the drums. So we actually had a very, very unique presentation and a unique sound. We did, yeah.
Yeah. And I also, I watched an interview that you did last year with Chandler Nero about how his song gave you guys your first #1. When did you first hear his song?
It was very well known around Liverpool. Once we came back from Hamburg, we had to start adopting to rock and roll. We were writing 1 or 2 songs as well. But it was a big song in Merseyside. The Beatles were doing it. 1 or 2 other of the top line groups at that time were doing it. And there was Norman was going out with Sue Johnson, an actress. She's still around now. She was working with Brian Epstein as one of his secretaries, and she got hold of the single and said to Norman, "Look, if you're looking for," because we were due to go for a recording edition, if you're looking for something rock and roll, try this. And it was Chandler Mero's Hippie Hippie Chic.
Wow.
So we learned to play it. I knocked the guitar solo together, and we went down to Abbey Road Studios and recorded it, and then it became a major hit.
Wow.
Simple as that, really.
Very interesting.